what is up guys, Mergaman4 here, and today I'll be taking a look at our last standalone-ish episode of the season, the Interstellar Song Contest. I think the best way to tackle this is to talk about the standalone stuff first, so let me just say, from the concept alone, a song contest in space, this was my least anticipated episode of the season. I have never really cared for this sort of thing, I don't have a clue who Rylan is, so I had a feeling this episode wouldn't be for me. And I was half right? The song contest aspect wasn't actually as prominent as I expected it to be. Not that I thought it was going to be the whole episode without any threat, but I guess I assumed the villain would be a lot slower to reveal themselves. So I was actually glad about that, and I have to admit the sequence of the audience being ejected from the station out into space is one of the most tense and visually impressive set pieces the show has ever attempted. However, I still found myself struggling to engage with what we got. I think in large part, this is because I just didn't care for most of the characters. Gary and Mike did have a pretty fun rapport, both with each other and with the Doctor, but everyone else... I also think once the big throw everyone into space set piece was over, the story never quite regained the same sense of danger and urgency. Oh, Kids Plan's massacre is astonishing in its scale, but with the victims being so distant and unseen, it's difficult to really feel it, and in particular, I think the pacing feels way too slow for what ultimately amounts to racing to beat a countdown. Also in regards to the pacing, the villain's basically beaten 30 minutes in, which leaves an entire third of the episode to wrap things up. I think this probably contributes to both my previous complaints about not feeling the weight of the threat and not caring for the characters, since in any other episode we probably would have had another 10 minutes or so to build up these aspects before the Doctor claims victory. And that's another thing I need to talk about. The Doctor. Look, I'll just say it, this episode made me feel the phrase, "not my doctor." Because my doctor would never have tortured a villain who's already been beaten. My doctor would never immediately jump to violence and cruelty without at least giving his opponent a chance. No matter how monstrous the enemy, that isn't him. And I know that this isn't an accident. The episode draws attention to this. It's a deliberate choice. But if you're going to do that, you have to justify it. And this episode does not. It's not that I think the Doctor could never be brought to this under any circumstances, but I mean, it's one thing if Kid had succeeded in his plan and had murdered 3 trillion people past tense. If the Doctor had tried to talk with them, to understand him, to talk him round, but utterly failed. Instead, he takes this approach right from the off, kicks a man when he's down, and even worse, the script doesn't condemn him for it. Again, it acknowledges it, but it's basically shrugged off with the Doctor saying, "I scared myself," and no, that's not good enough. To have Belinda turn around and tell him he's wonderful after witnessing this? This should have caused a major rift in their growing friendship. The fact that it didn't, and now we're heading immediately into the finale, it's not going to be expanded upon next week, is criminal, in my opinion. In terms of good things, I do still really enjoy Belinda, and I thought her panic attack after she thinks she lost the Doctor is brilliant, although it does feel like something that ought to have happened a lot earlier in her travels rather than now. I regret to say that I found Dug-a-Doo to be quite catchy. I think there's some well-edited sequences here, which I think make a valiant effort to remedy the wonky pacing of the script, even though it's not wholly successful. Oh, and the lead into the finale is pretty decent. The image of the TARDIS doors being blown inward is a striking one. And that's really all I have to say about the main body of this episode. So why don't we talk about bigger things? First off, I mean, I'm still utterly baffled why this didn't happen last season, but we finally have Carol Ann Ford back as Susan. Now, on the one hand, this is something I've wanted to see for a long time, and I'm glad it's finally become a reality. On the other hand, I think RTD's just burnt me too much, because my reaction was not one of immense joy, but a mildly curious, oh. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the stuff we got in this episode had very little substance, and is clearly just a tease for what's to come, and I'm very much asking the question, why is the Doctor getting these visions now? And truthfully, I just don't know if I can trust RTD to deliver on it, so I think I'm just refusing to get myself too excited, lest I end up crushingly disappointed. So yeah, I'm waiting to see what's done with it before passing comment. And then we have the Mrs. Flood reveal, what all those cameos were building up to. Well, not so much building up to as desperately trying to create fan engagement. This is one of many things this season that leaked, so I was expecting this, and while I am really happy to see the return of the Ranny after all this time, after watching this reveal, I just can't help but ask, why? No, seriously, I just can't wrap my head around why Mrs. Flood is the Ranny, because she doesn't act like the Ranny in any of her prior appearances, and now that she's revealed herself, she immediately bigenerates into a new incarnation whom she's subservient to and who still calls her Mrs. Flood, thereby continuing to not act like the Ranny. So, if you had to reveal the Ranny here in the lead up to the finale, which, by the way, I'm also kind of baffled by given how lazily it's tacked on to the end here, why is Mrs. Flood the actual Ranny and not just a lackey to the Ranny? Is it because Russell wants to standardize bigeneration as the norm going forward? Which, please no. And frankly, the dialogue here is atrocious. It's so exposition-y and just feels fake. Genuinely, I think that this might be the worst villain reveal that the Revival has ever done. Glad the character's back, but as with Susan, I'm struggling to get too excited because I just don't trust RTD to do her justice, and this wasn't a promising start. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that I found the Interstellar Song Contest a very mixed bag indeed. Now, for all the criticism I just lobbed at it, I actually don't think this is a bad episode. I don't think it's great, but it's mostly alright, with a couple great moments and a couple awful ones. I did admittedly find it pretty challenging to determine a score for it, but I've consulted my list and have come to the conclusion that it fits alongside other stories that I would give a 6.5 out of 10 to, so a 6.5 it is. And those are my thoughts on the Interstellar Song Contest. Unfortunately, the first underwhelming experience I've had this season. But what did you think? Agree with my thoughts? Did you enjoy it more than I did? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be back in 2 weeks' time to review the full season finale. See you guys later.